um, the idea really is coming from the gifts of God, which I'm working with for the retreat, which is coming up on Friday. And I know some of you will be there at the Christmas retreat. So whenever we're preparing, usually there's a process involved, you know, for me, there's a process involved in even reading the gifts of God. And so it brought up a topic that I want to explore with you this morning, because you may well have input into it that would be really helpful in the retreat itself. So I thought we would look at the idea of the gifts of God, and more importantly, why we're not opening our hearts to receive the gifts of God. That's really what we have to take a look at. And what the gifts of God points out is that we can't have a little bit of fear in love. It's all or nothing. The tiniest bit of fear in love, and it's no longer love. And as long as we believe in fear, as long as we believe in fear, then there's no hope for us to receive the gifts of love, because we're literally holding on to fear. So it's essential that we begin to realize that everything in the world is based in a lie, and everything in the world is based in fear. So and we believe in the fear fiercely. And so, you know, until that's ended, like no longer valuable for us, no longer meaningful for us. And the only way I can allow that fear to be undone is with help, because I believe it. So there is no way for fear and our belief in fear to be undone without Jesus, without the Holy Spirit, without something outside of the dream of fear that doesn't believe in the fear that we believe in. And so we need to look at it, and we need to look at it with assistance. We can't look at it ourselves, which is often what course students do, is they look at their fear with their ego. Has anybody here done that?
Oh, yeah.
Don't admit it.
Could you get me?
I thought you were going to say wine.
No. I asked Tim for a glass of water, so he'll be right back. So we have to look at our fear and our belief in it, and we have to have help from outside the dream to look with us, an all-loving presence, call it Holy Spirit, call it Jesus, call it life itself. But it has to be loving, meaning it's in your best interests. You know, it is loving for you. It is a representative of God's gifts. So if it's Jesus, if it's a brother at the checkout counter, if it's a brother at the store, if it's a brother that's come to fix some part of my bathroom fixtures. These are the gifts of God coming to us, but we can't receive it. We can't see it because of our belief in fear. So let me start with this statement from the Course about miracles. It's in chapter 1. So we'll stop at the end of this and make a little time to sort of sit with this idea. The real purpose of this world is to use it to correct your unbelief. To correct your unbelief. Unbelief in love and your mistaken belief in fear. You can never control the effects of fear yourself because you made fear and you believe in what you have made. In attitude, then, but not in content, you resemble your Creator, who has perfect faith in his creations because he created them. That is why you can believe what no one else thinks is true. It's true for you because it was made by you. All aspects, and there are many, all aspects of fear are untrue because they do not exist at the creative level, and therefore they do not exist at all. To whatever extent you are willing to submit your beliefs to this test, to that extent are your perceptions corrected. I'll read that again. All aspects of fear are untrue because they do not exist at the creative level and therefore do not exist at all. To whatever extent you are willing to submit your beliefs to this test, to that extent are your perceptions corrected. In sorting out the false from the true, the miracle proceeds along these lines. Perfect love casts out fear. If fear exists, then there is not perfect love. But only perfect love exists. If there is fear, it produces a state that does not exist. There is nothing to fear lesson 47. There is nothing to fear. This simply states a fact. It is not a fact to those who believe in illusions, but illusions are not facts. In truth, there is nothing to fear. It is very easy to recognize this, but it is very difficult to recognize it for those who want illusions to be true. The presence of fear is a sure sign that you are trusting in your own strength. The awareness that there is nothing to fear shows that somewhere in your mind, though not necessarily in a place you recognize as yet, you have remembered God and let his strength take the place of your weakness. The instant you are willing to do this, there is indeed nothing to fear. Would anyone like to share any thoughts about what that brings up for us when we hear there is indeed nothing to fear? Sort of stops us in our tracks, doesn't it? It really, it really, I can see why Jesus calls us silly. Jesus calls us silly, and the Holy Spirit smiles. And there really isn't.
The first thing that Lynn read was on page 14, and two things that stood out to me. And he doesn't say this very often, but in paragraph 4 on page 14, you can never control the effects of fear, line 2, because you made fear. It's one of those and early on, first chapter, he's blatantly telling us we made fear up to support our belief in the separation. Because the only reason we think we're afraid is because we're separate. And the only reason we're separate is because we feel the fear. I mean, that's why we believe it. But both are made up. It's interesting to think that we even have the capability to make up a feeling, because feelings seem to come out of nowhere. They seem to be an automatic reaction internally to something that I have no control over. But this whole, and then in paragraph 5, he says, all aspects of fear are untrue. Well, we're walking aspects of fear. last night I had this image of Jesus and I standing outside of the Tim figure and Tim figure's story and looking at that story and realizing it was all based on fear, like what I was, what we are had nothing to do with all these aspects of fear, all these stories of fear, all these little bodies and little personalities running around. That our true reality in heaven has, our true reality period, not just in heaven, but our true reality period has nothing to do with our stories. I'm a course student. Yeah. Yeah, whatever. I'm just a walking aspect of fear. I mean, as long as I'm identifying with that guy in that story about Tim. And actually stand outside of that and see that it was just something I was choosing to identify with. And it was just obvious in that experience that it wasn't true. It wasn't who you are, it wasn't who I am. It's just not true.
The thing that came up for me over reading this a few times is that, well, my first concern is with undoing the belief in fear. Probably my last concern too. I mean, the concern is how can I allow that to happen? And how can I be more and more willing to look at fear? How can I recognize fear when it is arising? Because for the most part, we probably don't even call it fear, but it's just one of the many, many hundreds of faces of fear, but it's all fear. Every dream of the world is made of fear. The response to the tiny mad idea and the guilt in the mind is sheer terror that we have sinned and we deserve to be punished. And that expectation of being punished is what fear is. We walk around with this deeply held belief in fear that we probably have never really countenanced until we come to the Course. We probably never had seen it so clearly that if what I want is love. If I want to know that I am loving and lovable on a scale in which there is no division, that it's shared equally with all, and that's something I really, really want. And I want the helpers, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, all the helpers, everyone sent to me. Jesus actually says in the Gifts of God, he's talking to Helen, and he's saying, very few have been asked to do what you have been asked to do. Well, I take question with that. I mean, very few have heard the request to do what everyone is being asked to do. And that's true of all of us sitting here today. I mean, very few, you can say very few, but ultimately everyone will make this journey that we're making. And it may be few now, but he says to her, that's all that's needed. He actually says that's all that's needed. are very few to change their minds. But really, he's talking about changing our belief from fear to love so that we can accept the gifts of God, and so that that radiates through us, so that it literally radiates through us. And so we're moving beyond concept to the actual living and letting love live and express through us. But again, there can't be fear mixed in with that. So we're not even going to want to accept the love of God as long as we're carrying fear. We'll believe that if we accept it, we're going to get punished. You know, it's one or the other. It's 100% fear or 100% love. Jane. You're on mute, Jane.
I know. Thank you. I think that in addition, obviously, the biggest fear is the ontological fear that we're going to get punished because we left God. But that's a fear that most people don't even think about when they're in fear. They don't realize how unbelievable and unreal that is. For me, I think that fear comes when I desire something and don't realize there's nothing to desire. We have everything. And I realize that if I am feeling fearful, that I can't heal it intellectually. I have to go within to the Holy Spirit with the obstacle that's to uncover the obstacle that's causing that fear. And usually I always find it's a desire of either to get rid of something, to have something change, to see somebody different. And I don't mean different through the eyes of the Holy Spirit. I want to see him through the Holy Spirit, but I don't want to see him through the ego. And I'm seeing them through the ego. So those are the main reasons that I have fear. And if I look at it immediately, which I really try to do now, having been in the course for so long, the answer comes. The answer absolutely comes, and the fear dissipates.
Well, as you were saying that, I was asking myself, when do I experience love, or when do I experience fear? And what came to me is when I feel I'm justified in withholding love. When I feel I'm justified in holding love back from someone, because I'm actually thinking that God should punish them. I'm actually having that belief, God punishes, God should punish them. So I'm just going to withhold just a little bit of love, just a little bit I'm going to withhold. I'm going to be sort of nice, but I'm not going to, in my heart, totally give this brother everything, So, even in the gifts of God, he talks about scraps of fear, scraps, little pieces of our dream that we select out and, in my case, use as a justification, perhaps to withhold love. I'm literally stopping that flow. I'm literally withholding it. Well, of course I'm going to feel, scared over doing that.
But Lynn,
go ahead.
If you can go one step further with that, is to really hold the belief and know the belief is that you cannot withhold love. You are not capable of withholding love. You are love.
But I can believe I can withhold love.
Yeah,
I can
Exactly.
actually believe that I'm
Yeah,
doing
you can.
something, and I'm doing something clearly counter to my
Yes.
creator, clearly
Exactly.
counter to my creator,
Exactly.
who is
So you-
love. And so
Right.
I'm doing something that isn't, it's not in my best interest. It's insane. It's impossible. It's
Impossible.
silly. You know, it's all of that. And so I don't know, maybe others have places that you really notice when you're fearful. Let's hear it. And then you know what to do. You know, we'll talk about what to do. Colleen, did you have I thought you looked like you wanted to say something.
I was thinking about the times that I just want a little chaos. When I want just a little chaos, that's when I am recognizing, like I want to create a little something so that there is a flurry of activity or something. And you know, so I gotta take that, ask the Holy Spirit, saying, "Oh my, look at that." I knowingly am aware that that's what I want to do. I want to have a little energy in this interaction or in the situation. So that's my fear. I know, I realize that's my fear, and a shameful one too.
That's great. Thank you. David, I think you wanted to talk. You're on mute.
Lynn?
Yeah, there you go.
mentioned that some people or many of us are not even aware that we are afraid. But I think little anxieties. Will I get everything done today that I need to get done?
Mm-hmm.
Is an evidence of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Any anxiety, any little disease. And that way we can become aware that we really are fearful and need to lay that aside.
And what he says in here, I'm actually going to go to this in a minute to get some gone. But you know what he says in here about us just giving a nod to asking for help, a nod to Jesus, a nod to the Holy Spirit is enough for all the helpers in the universe to come. I mean, it doesn't say it exactly that way, but pretty much, you know, that you know, if you are committed to this, you will have all the help you need, and you will really learn to rest in God, truly learn to rest in God, that you do rest in God, that we all rest in God, the mind in the mind of God.
I was thinking about what Colleen was saying. There's a line in Lesson 50 in the first paragraph where he says, in this world, we believe we are sustained by everything but God. So in this world, we actually, without admitting it, going back to what David was saying, we are sustained by fear. I mean, just to even say that out loud is like, nah, you know, like, yeah, I get a little preoccupied with this chaos. I get a little preoccupied with this drama over here, but I don't consciously believe I'm sustained by fear. I mean, and in the early on, somewhere in the text, he says, when you realize, if and when you realize that you're putting up with fear all the time, you'd let it go in a heartbeat. I mean, how much fun is that? So, I mean, something about, if you realize how much you countenance fear, that we allow it, that we look for it, that we look for the chaos, that we look for the drama all day long, and how exhausting that is, we let it go. And we would try to figure out how to let it go, especially as we begin to realize we're making it up each time. In that thing, I think it goes back to what Jane was talking about. We place our faith, we place our belief in the most trivial and insane symbols. So we all have our running list. Here he mentioned some of those things that we get fearful about, hoping they're going to work or hoping that it won't work. But pills, money, clothing, influence, prestige. I mean, these are all like things that without saying it out loud, we get fearful about. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just what we're conscious of. But the whole ball game was set up as to believe I'm this vulnerable thing that needs clothing, that needs money, that needs prestige, that needs being liked, that needs knowing the right people. It goes on and on. But all that stuff, we don't think we're getting afraid about it. We just think they're concerns that we need to deal with this stuff. But pull the rug on any one of those things and watch chaos kick in like in a heartbeat.
This is from the gifts of God. Let's just look at this idea for a minute. If you were certain, wholly sure, and with consistent grasp of what the world can give, fear would be laid aside as easily as joy and peace would unite on love's behalf. But first, there must be certainty that there can be no love where fear exists, and that the world will never give a gift which is not made of fear, concealed perhaps, but which is surely present somewhere in the gift. Accept it not, and you will understand a gift far greater has already been given you.
It's interesting. The world will never give a gift that's not rooted in fear.
Right?
And yet we keep looking to the world for these things that Tim mentions.
Yeah. I was the gifts of fear can look so many different ways. And I was just thinking about one of the gifts of fear is there's always going to be a winner and a loser. That's one of the gifts of fear. Somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose. We can't both win.
And our fear is that we might lose. Our fear is that we might lose.
Yeah. So that is a form of fear, is the belief in loss.
And the belief that I am this thing that can lose. That's the underlying insistency through it all. At the end of that list I was reading, he calls it an endless list of forms of nothingness that we endow with magical powers. We think this pill will work, this money will work, this much money will work. These kind of clothes are right for me, whatever it is. I mean, it's always taking this endless list of forms of nothingness to support a nothing identification.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what he's saying is it's all nothing. Fear is an illusion. That's what the world is made of. And it's nothing. Nothing, 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 nothing. Nothing. And so we'll have our knickers in a knot about, life in the world. And we're obsessed with life in the world, which is keeping us fearful. Because we keep saying, this is reality, this is it.
And then the double whammy is so I mean, on some level we know we're doing this, right? And then instead of looking at it, admitting it, and then being willing to ask for help to let it go, then we judge ourselves for being bad course student, or being preoccupied, for feeling fearful in the first place. I mean, it's bad enough we're already feeling fearful about whatever we consciously think we're feeling fearful about, but then we judge it like I'm a bad boy. If I was really a good course student, I wouldn't be afraid. Well, Jesus is never asking us not to be afraid. I mean, he's saying, look at it, you know, like, look at how much we really think we are in fear about an endless list of stuff. Don't even try to minimize that, but look at it, and then and then hold my hand so you don't beat the crap out of yourself for doing that.
Right. Kim,
Yeah.
I think Jesus is telling us too that the eternal and the eternity, which is absolutely without fear, is the now. If we stay in the now, because most fear is fear of the future, something out there, like you were saying. I'm not going to have enough, maybe not have enough money tomorrow. What happens if I don't get Social Security? What happens if my child can't get into college? Just an endless thing. But they're all out there. They're all in the future. They're not in the now. They're not. If you stay in the now, you can't have fear. There isn't any fear in the now. And it's a practice. It's just, gosh, you have to practice it 24/7, which I don't do, but I know when I don't do it, big time.
And that's the important thing for all of us, is to recognize when we, really when we are in fear,
Right.
which is shockingly a lot.
Yeah. Right.
And the way I would describe the experience I had last night, we were looking at basically death, like how much I'm afraid of that. Like that underlies everything. Like
Yes.
like I don't even want to admit how much I'm afraid of Lynn's passing, much less my own passing. Like that just like is always this thing that's going to pull the rug on anything I have an investment in. Is whatever I have an investment in, it will eventually evaporate or disintegrate or leave me, or there'll be betrayal. And then certainly in terms of my relationships, if I'm not in the now, if I'm not standing back with Jesus, being willing to look at all this fear that I don't even know I've made up, and how it just underlies, like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop all the time. Since I'm not in the now, I'm preoccupied with the past. I'm projecting into the future. I skip over the now. I don't even want to sit here and look at all this stuff with Jesus. I don't even like that experience is right out the window. And then to actually allow myself to have that. And then suddenly and I'm getting glimpses of it now also, to step out of that, be willing to step out of that and hold Jesus' hand and look at it and just allow him to say, this is what you think you are. Well, you can't step out of it and look at it and not realize that that's what's happening. It is what I think I am, but that's not me. If I've stepped out of it and I'm holding Jesus' hand, then the experience is, oh yeah, this ain't us. I think John's passing really pushed that in my face, like there's a part of me that knows like he's more, everywhere right this second. Same way I felt it with Ken. It's almost tangible. It's like, I know he's present. I know John's present. I know Ken's present. All I have to do is think about him, and the presence is there, and just allow that to not fight that, to not say, nah, I'm making it up, and allow myself to like hold Jesus's hand, whatever that looks like, feels like, and actually experience that.
It's interesting. Since my son's passing is really the first direct experience I've had of being with someone that I love, and which ultimately would be all my brothers, but that, my son being for a moment the symbol of all my brothers. And seeing the body just waste away and the life going out of it. And realizing that that's not what was happening at all. It was not what was happening. And really to say what was happening is really to diminish the experience, that it was really up to me to choose what was happening. What did I want to see in that? You know, what would Jesus have me see? You know, and taking his hand and saying, show me, you know, show me how to see this, you know, show me to take the fear out of it. To, you know, to look past the fear that it was representing for me in the dream as a body, for other people around me, for my son, knowing that our minds were in communication through the whole thing, you know, and knowing that was what did, you know, that Jesus would show me what was really happening. And I knew for sure that it wasn't what appeared to be happening. That was the important thing. That, you know, I'm using that as an example of what he's trying to teach us in the gifts of God. And we believe that's what's happening in front of us is reality. And we believe that what's happening in our body and you know, how we feel and the thoughts that we have, on and on and on, our feelings, our thoughts, our emotions, all of that, we believe that that's reality. And we're really stuck in that. You know, when we're caught in perception, we're caught in a dream. And the dream is fearful, it's terrifying, no matter how we cut it. So in realizing that the falling away of the body is not a big deal. It's really not a big deal. And we can do that now. You know, Jesus is asking us to do that. And the way we do it is, you know, give up your belief in fear so that I can show you, I can work through you, I can, you know, use your willingness to hear my call, you know, Jesus' call, your willingness to hear the call that has been put out makes us useful. For one thing, it makes us really useful to God, you know, useful to the truth, useful to love, useful. I want to read you a little bit about what he says about that. Rest could be yours. I think that was the topic that was on the announcement on the website. But he's saying there's a secret place in everyone in which the gifts of God are already laid. The secret place in everyone. So the gifts are already there. We've already been given everything. It is not secret to the eyes of Christ, who sees it plainly and unceasingly. So not the eyes of the body, but the eyes of Christ, which is who we are as God's Son. It is not secret to the eyes of Christ who see it plainly and unceasingly, yet it is hidden to the body's eyes and to those still invested in the world and caring for the petty gifts it gives, esteeming them and thinking they are real. Illusions gifts will hide the secret place where God is as clear as day. Oh, let it not be secret to the world so full of sorrow and so racked with pain. You could relieve its grief and heal its pain and let the peace of God envelop it, as does a mother rock a tired child until it sighs and slips away to rest. Rest could be yours because of what God is. He loves you as a mother loves her child. So this is what he's trying to get us to realize could be true for us if we would allow it. The night is dark, but it will have an end. Be comforted with this. No one I send to help you reach the goal will fail to stand beside you till your kingdom is secure. So in other words, everyone is sent to us by love, hearing our call for love, and as an opportunity to secure the beach, so to speak, the beach being love, the beach being the secret place in our mind where we recognize the gifts of God are already there. Until your kingdom is secure. The promises of God are given you. What could be surer? There is help indeed for one so near to heaven. There is change in everything but this, whom he has called and who has answered him, as you have done, can rest in peace upon his loving arm and trust his gratitude and thankful heart to beat for yours when yours appears to fail. Do not imagine he will leave his child who heard his voice and listened to his word. Remember this, the thanks of God are yours and will not leave you comfortless for long. You are still needed in the world to hear his voice and share his messages of love with those who call in sorrow. Could it be that you will fail to find him when his need for you becomes as great as yours for him? You need not fear. You need not fear that you will suffer any loss, nor that he will abandon you who gave his comfort to his son. Receive the gift you gave to God, and he would give it to you. Do not forget God's thanks and understand the gratitude of God goes far beyond all things the world can offer. For his gifts will last forever in his heart and ours. Be thankful for his love and for his care. For in this world it has been given few to give a gift to God as you have done. Yet only few are needed. They will suffice for all the rest, and they give thanks to you along with their Creator and with yours. He is not careless of the gifts he gives, nor are his promises in vain. Be sure a mother does not fail the son she loves, nor will a father cast away his child. You are my son, and do not forget the secret place in which I still abide, knowing you will remember. Come, my son, open your heart and let me shine on you and on the world through you. What a beautiful image to open our hearts and let love shine on us. I mean, it's an attitude with which we can go through our life and see that no harm can come. No harm can come. Everything is a part of that, of the kingdom of heaven, and blessing one another and giving to one another. And there's no expectation of loss when we open our hearts, but by, again, recognizing the fear in us and letting Jesus and the Holy Spirit just smile them away. Smile them away. Not to forget. Don't forget the secret place. It reminds me of The Secret Garden. Has anybody seen that movie? Well, it's like there's a secret garden within, that's already filled with the gifts of God. Thank you for everybody being here. Are we late?
No.
My pleasure, as always.
That was Siri. She just said, my pleasure. Thank you. So anyone have anything they want to claim?
Bruce, what's happening?
Actually, earlier when you were talking about the reality of the body, I was just kind of reflecting because I recently read Gary Renard's fourth book, and it's interesting sometimes when people say, "Well, I don't know if I buy this because it was two ascended masters who supposedly materialized on his couch," and the veracity of the body, which is sort of the instrument of fear. And I was thinking, well, the irony is that the messages they're giving, and of course Miracles provides, is that the whole point is that we're not bodies, and these appearances are just hallucinations of an insane thought system that we have persisted in making into such a big deal that it seems like it's a real thing, and it really is hilarious in truth, but we don't see that comedy most of the time, do we? I mean,
but you expressed it very, very wonderfully, and certainly, we get it. I mean, some of it is, I think, the willingness to step up gently and speak the truth. Mm-hmm. I mean, I found that so much in people coming up to me and saying, I'm sorry for your loss. And, you know, not as a correction, but sometimes I actually did share with someone, well, you know, I'm actually not experiencing it as a loss in the way I thought I would or should. You know, this is how you're supposed to be, but it wasn't that way. I mean, there was a new belief, you know, that I was willing to follow.
Yeah.
And not even a belief. I was willing to be shown. Actually, belief was definitely the wrong word there. I was willing to be shown and drop my beliefs.
There's a man in our group who often says if it doesn't last, it's not real. And the body just isn't going to last. And therefore, it's not real.
I was thinking how the paradigm begins to shift when bodies start telling each other our bodies aren't real, instead of you're the reason I'm upset. Your body's the reason I'm upset. I mean, when that all begins to shift, when I'm willing to have my seeming own body be, not say it out loud to people.
When your body gives my body a hard time.
Yeah, right. Like, you're the reason I'm upset, David.
Right.
I know it for sure. Wait till I tell Jeannie what you did. So, but that, I mean, instead of using bodies to point the finger at, we start addressing it like, oh, maybe we're not real at all. Maybe this isn't our identity. Maybe this vulnerable thing that we all are identified with is just some choice that we're making, that if we go into the now, if we ask Jesus for help, whatever that looks like for each of us, then we can actually share that message with somebody else instead of telling them all the time, you're the reason I'm upset.
I mean, it would be fun to see and to experience what it's like as we go through our days more and more frequently, more and more aware of our need to give up fear and giving up fear. It will be interesting to see how the Holy Spirit, Jesus, teach us to see, you know, what is really there for us to see, because we're not seeing it through the body's eyes at all. It's seeing through the mind. So exciting. It's really exciting. Everything that comes before us in the course of the day should bring forth wonder and excitement over, you know, here I am, here's my classroom, here's another way I can open my heart to receive the gifts of God. Because that's all that he's saying, and that's all I'm sending you is help. I'm not going to send you enemies. I'm not going to send you, you know, something that's going to hurt you. You want to learn.
I was thinking that title that you read earlier, lesson 48, 47, there is nothing to fear because everything I'm afraid of is nothing, including this. This is my frame of reference. And this vulnerable frame of reference is
nothing. nothing.
I mean,
nothing.
I don't believe that, but I mean, my belief's still like, so whenever I'm afraid, consciously afraid of anything, I've always gone back to this series of steps that preceded that fear. Like, well, now I actually believe your body, I'm a body, your body's affecting my body. The whole purpose of being afraid is to insist that this identity is what we are. This thing that can feel fear. I mean, nothing was made up. We believe in nothing, just so we have the experience of fear and how silly.
There's a lot of stillness that happens. I'm finding more and more stillness where I'm not generating an opinion or a judgment or coming up with a solution, or, there's more, waiting for the next thing to show itself than planning. There's more, allowing things to unfold in the willingness to see everything as it is. I wonder what's really here. Show me the meaning of this, because I don't know. And it has to be kind, it has to be generous, it has to be loving, because that's all there is if I'm not believing in fear. It's the straight projection.
And like Jane was saying, that's all there is, period, anyway. Whatever isn't the nothing is what we are.
Yeah. That's good.
As you all were talking, I was thinking about when I was a young boy, and I used to make up stories to stay out of trouble with my dad. You'd always try to come up with an excuse why something did or didn't happen and make him happy. So in my case, way back when, my dad would take off his belt and give you what for, when it was still allowed to hit a child. And now I think about the stories we make up to because we're afraid of God and that we want to be separate. And originally, now I think about, we all have stories, and the stories keep changing. But now I realize the outside world isn't changing my story. I'm always changing it. And now I have control over my dialogue, because I'm the one that's projecting it out and seeing it and perceiving it. Now I can make a choice how I want to see it, through the spirit or through the ego, be upset or not be upset, and give love. And like you said, Lynn, it's interesting. I've also felt that calmness of not needing to want to correct everything or change everything. I've always looked for, what I could do in the world to change the world. And now I just look at the world and sort of laugh, because it's even though it's sad, it's pretty funny what we're doing to ourselves and our projections. It's and we project it out, and then how we perceive it, how we perceive the world is doing it to us. But now that we know, and through this course, which is so important, that we're the ones that are projecting it out. We're the ones that have control. We're the ones that can, how we're going to perceive it. And we have a choice.
Yep.
But when we have that choice, that's what's made the difference. Before, I didn't think I had a choice. Now I know I have a choice.
All the power in heaven and earth is in that one choice.
Yep.
Just one choice, and that's what makes us so powerful. Just a turn in that direction to the Holy Spirit, Jesus, God, and he says, everything will be given you. Boom, just turn in our direction, and you'll learn that you're safe. You're safe. You're home. You never left.
And as Jesus says, we have to give up the fear.
Yep.
And now you really can understand why we have to give it up, and why he can't take it away from us.
Right.
We have to give it up. And once we give it up, the difference it makes. And it's a daily, the course says you have to look at you've got to be mindful of your thoughts. Got to really be looking at your thoughts, but you can't look at every thought, but you got to be mindful of your thoughts. And like Tim was saying, is when I get into trouble, or he gets in trouble, he looks at his thoughts and he says, how did I get to this point? And then reflects on what he did instead of what somebody else did. And I do that too. And I think that was a key point that Tim was making, a key teaching point that he was making, that it's very helpful.
Yeah. We think, we invest in our thoughts. We think our thoughts mean something.
Yeah.
That's the problem. We think what we're thinking is a real thought, and it's not.
I was thinking that's why we make up religions, to kind of minimize how much God's going to use the belt on us. We got ourselves afraid of this, like he's going to take the belt to us, because we think this is very real and we're going to be punished. And then we make up special love relationships, and we do that with each other. If we'll make up some kind of bargain with each other, a compromise, so that you don't use the belt on me too much, I won't use the belt on you too much. I mean, it's like this fear of it never addresses the issue of fear. It just deals with how much attack am I willing to take from the other guy without pulling the rug on the whole attack fear cycle.
One of the things, and I'll close with this thought, I know we're a little over, that I learned in the process of my son's transition was the belief that Jesus points this out to us. He calls it the strangest belief of all, is that you lose the things you love. There's our belief in loss and sacrifice, all of it. And I can vouch for the fact that that is not true. What we love stays with us forever, which is why it's a nice thing to love your brother, you know, no exceptions. So we don't lose the things we love. Have a good week, everybody. Oh, are we here next week? Yeah, we're still here. We have a
We think we're here. We're here next week.
We have the gifts of God. We may all sort of lift off at the retreat this weekend, but we're doing the gifts of God. So, and so we'll see you next Tuesday.
And we are planning to have a Thursday class so far. I mean, it looks like we'll be doing a Thursday class this week.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know that.
if you want to come on for that, cool.
Thanks, everybody. Have a
Have a
good
great week, all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.